all, welcome back to the Highland Greenhouse here at Carlton Carnivores. Got another plant spotlight for you guys, and today we are returning to the Nepenthes, and in particular we're starting with some of the more highland species. This one is a species that is relatively recently described, but has been known for a long time underneath a different name. This is Nepenthes ulukaliana, named after the type location Gunung Ulukali in Peninsular Malaysia. These guys have been grown in cultivation for many years, but up until a couple years ago they were known under the name Nepenthes macfarlanei because they were confused with that species, because the macfarlanei complex, basically a whole bunch of different closely related species, are all kind of united by having these funky hairs that actually stick down from the undersurface of the lid. What exactly those hairs do, I'm not entirely sure anybody knows. They may be places for insects to grab hold as they drink from the extrafloral nectaries, or they could have display purposes for that nectar. Who knows exactly? One of many things that are kind of still to be learned exactly about these rather enigmatic plants. But macfarlanei was a species recently refound and redescribed from a different mountain range from where these guys are found, and so these and several other species have been described as separate taxa altogether and given recognition on their own. This species is found in what is considered the southern Titiwangsa range in Malaysia. That includes several different mountaintops, including Gunung Ulukali, the Genting Highlands, and a few other places. This is a plant specifically from the Genting Highlands lineage. That's where these guys originate from. And they're found from anywhere from about 11 to 1200 to over 1700 meters in elevation. So between roughly 3,500, 4,000 feet to well over 7,000 feet in elevation. So truly highland plants. They experience some very cool wet conditions in the wild, and might be what you might call cloud forest plants in some cases. This species is actually quite variable in how it grows. They can be found terrestrially in fairly open clearings, the edges of meadows or tree falls and such, mossy outcrops, or they can also grow epiphytically. So when moss pads form in those cloud forests on the branches of trees, seeds land on them, and these guys may sprout and grow right from there and grow just up off the sides of the trees and branches. So they can be found from ground level up to 30, 40, 50 feet or more in the air on the trees. Now, this species is kind of unique in its group for the shape of its lower pitchers. Now, this is still a very young plant, and it's going to get repotted soon so that it grows much faster. But these guys, they tend to have fairly large leaves. They're kind of oblanceolate, obovate in shape, so they've got a narrow base that kind of flares out around before being a decurrent attachment to what's often a very red stem, and then the tendril comes out, can be quite long, and goes to what can be up to sometimes a 10-inch tall pitcher. They'll probably average a little smaller, between 5 and 8 inches usually, but they can get fairly large at times, and they are what is referred to as urceolate or amphora shaped. So amphoras were those old-time ancient jars that had a fairly narrow base and then a broad kind of upper third that narrowed again to the mouth. And that's more or less what these guys do. They've got this very broad kind of funnel-shaped bottom half. It's hard to hold on to this thing because I'm trying to turn it so that you guys can see. But it's a very funnel-shaped lower half. Has a distinctive hip in especially the younger pitchers, but that can disappear as the lower pitchers mature. And then it broadens out a little further up in the upper portion, and then right below the peristome, the pitcher actually narrows again. It shrinks, so the mouth of the pitcher is actually smaller than the body of the pitcher is. They've got fairly large, broad, almost flat, slightly rounded at the edges peristome that comes up, and they have a pretty distinctive neck in the back that the peristome kind of sticks out from as well. And then, of course, the lid. It's a fairly large, usually rounded, orbiculate, sometimes ovular lid, and of course its most distinctive trait is it has these usually roughly less than a millimeter, sometimes up to 2 millimeter long, little white hairs that just cover the bottom of the lid. And oftentimes those hairs do kind of collect the nectar that builds up from the nectaries that are underneath there. And the coloration of these guys is rather variable. Some of them can be really dark. This lovely kind of mottled deep cherry and lighter red coloration. Others may be fairly light red mottled on a very like pale tan or cream green background. But in general, they all share that kind of lovely mottled coloration and relatively thin fringed wings that run right down the front. Now, when these guys transition to upper pitchers, they still have a lot fatter pitchers than the rest of their relatives, but they do change shape quite a bit. The upper pitchers actually become almost entirely funnel-shaped, except for, again, that constriction right below the peristome. So very funnel-shaped, and then because of that constriction, it almost looks like it's ballooned out at the top of the pitcher. Has the same kind of broad, rounded peristome, the hairs underneath the lid, but they become very distinctly different in their color. Now, the most colorful ones will be kind of a light, creamy yellow-green with like cherry red mottling. Others, though, the pitchers may become almost entirely porcelain white or very slightly pink blush throughout. And that's a trait that's actually shared, again, between a lot of the different species. Nepenthes alba will do that. Nepenthes sericea, burbulu. The upper pitchers are often very pale, sometimes very porcelain-looking, very whitish. And perhaps that is a trait that really attracts the flying insects around there. Oftentimes white colors are kind of hiding a hidden ultraviolet coloration that we can't see, but flying insects may see. And so those upper pitchers are really a lot better primed to catch flying insects, whereas, of course, the lower pitchers sitting on the ground are trying to attract with these darker colors crawling insects more so. Now, these guys are, like most other highland Nepenthes, kind of straightforward to grow if you can get the environmental conditions right. Again, this is an obligate highland plant. They may tolerate fairly warm conditions for a little while, but if they don't get their necessary nightly cool downs, eventually they will start declining, shrinking, and eventually collapse. So they want a fairly bright environment. Again, these are cloud forest to kind of open meadow plants, so they will grow in dappled sunlight, very strong artificial light, up to almost full sun if you acclimate them well enough. But that kind of strong artificial light or dappled sun is probably the best to work with for these guys, and probably the easiest to give as well. They like a relatively moist, loose soil, so like most Nepenthes, I will use a 1-to-1-to-1 long fiber sphagnum, perlite, and washed cocoa chip mix. You can also just do, depending on what your conditions are, if you're drier, you may use just a 1-to-1 or heavier sphagnum moss mix, or you may add in more bark and cocoa chips, pumice, and things like that to loosen it up if you have a really humid, wet environment instead. They need temperatures during the daytime that will be between maybe 70 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. They don't need it too warm, but they want to get at least somewhat up there so that they can grow and process properly. But then at night, they need temperatures that preferably drop below 60 degrees Fahrenheit in order to do well long term. And you have to provide that throughout their life. When they're really, really young, they can take a little warmer conditions because, of course, little seedlings, when they're right against the ground, they have kind of a buffer zone right along there where the heat exchange and the moisture exchange isn't happening as rapidly. But once they get bigger, they do expect that cool down to happen, and they definitely need that in order to do well long term. So if you can provide that, and also moderate humidity. Again, these guys are highland cloud forest plants, so especially during nighttime, they expect the humidity to rise up sometimes 70, 80, 90%, and they'll prefer it to be above 50% during the day. But if you acclimate them, they can tolerate a little lower, especially if you're giving them enough light for them to work with that. What they don't like is a lot of major fluctuation. So if you're spraying the plant, or if you have fans that turn on frequently, dehumidifiers, you want to do something to moderate that so that they get the humidity that they need and it stays stable. because stability is what will give you the best pictures. If it's not stable, they'll start producing funky traps that don't look quite right, and you need to kind of help them out, do something to boost them a bit. But if you can get those conditions right, cool temperatures, moist but not wet, relatively loose and airy soil, and then very bright light so they have the energy to produce the best pictures, it's a fairly straightforward plant. And once it gets going, it can be a fairly fast growing plant. You'll maybe get a leaf or two every month, and of course a new pitcher about the same rate. And these pitchers can last quite a while. The older one here right now is about 2 months old, and it'll probably still be around for another month at least. So a very happy, healthy plant might have several pitchers on it at a time. So it can be quite a spectacular thing, especially once they get fully mature. And those pitchers are, 5, 8, 10 inches tall. Now, this isn't necessarily a species that is readily found, although certainly it's more easily acquired than some of its more newly described or more locality restricted relatives like the true macfarlanei. But this is going to be a plant that may still cost a pretty penny, especially if you get a nice like seed-grown or very unique clone of these guys. Expect you may be paying anywhere between $50 to $125 for a plant between 2 and 5 inches across. Any larger than that, of course, and the price will usually go up exponentially. But this is probably the species that you're going to be most likely to find, either this or perhaps Nepenthes sericea, which is a much thinner pitchered plant, but with some similar colorations. So those are the two that are most likely to be found. So if you want to try one of the plants in the complex, these guys, or if you want to extend it to Nepenthes alba or ramispina, those are also fairly common. But I would certainly suggest, if you like the fat, very imposing pitchers, this is the species to go for. Now, that is about all that I have for that species right now. Certainly, if there's something that I've missed, if you have questions, leave them in the comments below. If you'd like to learn more about these guys or some of the other plants that I work with, I am always posting photos and video tidbits on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, etc. at Carlton Carnivores, or you can find the blog and database at carltoncarnivores.com. If you would like to help support this channel, first off, watching these videos all the way through really does help, as well as subscribing to the channel, sharing the videos, leaving comments and such. Interaction really helps the channel build. But you can also help support in more financial manners by buying some of the plants that I have available at my website shop. I often have a lot of Nepenthes. I have some tropical marsh pitchers available, sundews, butterworts, butterworts, etc. There's also merchandise if you don't want to buy something alive. You can also become a donor at patreon.com/hcarlton, where members there get early access to these videos. You get access to the monthly seed contests that I do, exclusive merchandise, and more. You can also do one-time donations at coffee.com, or simply contact me for other methods. Most of the links for these things will be in the video description below, but until next time, I'm Håkon Carlton, and this is Carlton Carnivores.